What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. So instead of posting a bunch of videos for my Resident Evil 4 Remake gameplay, I'm just doing this one. So you definitely want to stick around, and I'm just going to talk about what I loved about the game. Let's get into the details though. I am a huge Resident Evil fan. I love the franchise. I've played Resident Evil 2 Remake twice on stream, 3, and Village as well. So because I am familiar with the franchise and with the games, there are just a lot of things in this game that are exciting for me. So if you've played Resident Evil games before, of course, there's the familiar things like yellow for either direction or possible loot. And you'll just be familiar with like little in-game hints that maybe first-time players aren't familiar with. And I personally love that. I love that I can jump into this game and sort of like know, but still be surprised for what I'm looking for. Now, as a professional loot goblin, I absolutely loved all of the looting in this game. It was pretty much endless, and I think probably the most well done or just generally exciting out of the remakes recently. Getting into the actual game itself, well, I have to say, I do things a little bit differently. It was my first playthrough. I played the game on hardcore for that first playthrough. And most importantly, I was playing blind. So my gameplay and strategies might be different from somebody who is looking things up or even played a tutorial. I decided not to play the tutorial that was released before the game came out. So the opening of the game was definitely a little bit challenging, and I should have known better. I should have known that I just had to wait for a signal. I found myself stuck in this mob quite a few times and getting killed a bunch of times because I tried to do it stealth, but I think because I was on hardcore, going stealth in this first village area was nearly impossible. So yeah, once I heard that church bell ring, I said, oh, that's all it took. So it took me quite a few deaths to realize that I just had to survive and let all of those enemies clear out. So the mechanics in the game were a little tricky for me at first. I'm an old school console player, but I do play a lot of PC games now. That being said, I was trying to get a feel for what would be best, and the controller definitely wasn't it. And I'll say this because when I had the controller, I found myself hardly being able to dodge or evade an enemy whatsoever. The second I went into keyboard and mouse, it was light years of difference, but I still wasn't sure. So I want to say for the first couple chapters, I was like switching in between until I got to the lake fight. And that lake fight on controller was just absolutely impossible for me to do. And I said, okay, this is impossible and we're this early in game. So the first super challenging boss fight was the Mendez fight. And that is because in his second phase, I didn't realize you could actually go back up on the stairs because they were on fire. So I wasn't using video game logic. I was using real life logic. So I'm sad to say I spent an embarrassing amount of time on this fight, and I should have just gone through the fire to begin with and taken my chance considering how much time I wasted on this fight. Seriously. But once I figured out I was able to get him like that. That's the downside sometimes of playing a game blind, is that you're thinking too analytical, like you're in the real world, and you're not thinking like gaming mode. So I should have just gone through the fire and taken my chances. The first moment I was able to get a treasure map from the merchant, I definitely got that because I wanted all the loot. Not only that, but the mini games in this game were just a whole lot of fun. Those little things that you can attach to your case, they do give you cool bonuses that do happen to be useful. So we can't talk about this remake without talking about Ashley. That's right. She just got on my nerves, man. I don't know what it was about her, but she just got on my nerves and she drove me crazy. So one of the coolest parts of the game for me was the reflecting pool area, which just looked amazing, but it was also so challenging. And this is why I say, I think the game really rewards you for clearing out the mobs. Like it's not a From Software game. You don't want to just like figure out your area, take enemies down, die a bunch of times, and then feel like you don't need to do that again. It definitely rewards you for clearing out these mobs. You want to do it. And I almost feel like it really forces you to do it as well. But this room was just, it was beautifully designed. The fights were amazing. But this is when Ashley just, ooh, she killed me the most. She was so frustrating. Make sure you have a favorite weapon. This entire area took me far too long to get through. And yes, I cursed Ashley a million times. It was definitely all her fault. That being said, as much as I hated it, I also loved it. I love challenges like this. And that's what makes a game like Resident Evil so enjoyable for somebody like me. The puzzles in this game were also pretty fun and pretty interesting. Again, I can't stress enough that I really feel the game rewards you for clearing out mobs, and I'm so happy that I decided to stick with keyboard and mouse in the game for that reason, especially because there were still moments in game where I felt that if Leon was at an angle or near a doorway, you definitely had some camera boss moments, or just maybe some of the animation was slowing some of the movement down so I couldn't evade or dodge in the way that I wanted to. Even though the Verdugo fight was really short, I actually really enjoyed it. I think it was beautifully designed, the entire area, and I tend to like loot the whole time I'm also fighting, which is just, it's kind of silly, but it's another part of the challenge for me, and then I don't have to worry about going back and doing it later. But that fight was just a lot of fun. I liked blasting him with the nitrogen, getting damage in on him. It was enjoyable. Really short though, but it was cool. I think the overall pacing and direction of the game was just incredibly well done. And the scenery and the changes that you go through and the journey is just super cool. And of course, I have to mention, there's little moments that are just very reminiscent of Indiana Jones, and I'm not mad at it. I don't think it feels like a straight ripoff. It's just little homages here and there that bring out the nostalgia, and I really appreciate that. There was a really cool scene with Leon and Luis where they're barricaded inside of a cabin, and they have 2 windows in the front and 1 on the side of them, and they have to fight off this mob coming in at them nonstop. Luis is throwing Leon ammo to help him get through the fight. It's just a really cool sequence. That was really challenging. I felt like since I had leveled up quite a bit with my weapons, that was one of the most challenging fights up to that point in the game once I got a hang of all of the mechanics. Like I said, the journey that Leon goes through and the different scenery was just so immersive. I really liked it because it kept me in tension the entire time, including, of course, those beautiful bear traps, because let's face it, it's pretty dark in some of the sections of the game, so you completely miss them or they blend in with the environment completely. In terms of criticisms, I don't really have many. I feel like maybe some of the enemies early in the first few chapters of the game get a little bit repetitive with the dialogue, but if you just get good and kill them all in game, you don't have to worry about that. The boss fight that I actually liked the least was Salazar. I think the boss itself and his abilities were really cool, but it just felt a bit too much of a wild goose chase where you're just running and running and running. And again, one of those things where even if you had the timing down, you step out, it almost seemed like for quite a few times you couldn't even get a shot before he just spit out that black viscous fluid. A lot of people in my community hated Krauser, but I have to say, as annoying as he wasn't as annoying as Ashley. And the fight sequences were just so cool. I really enjoyed them. I loved his dialogue. I loved, again, that feeling of immersion of just going through all of his mazes and getting in his traps. That was just beautifully done. And then to just top it off with that end fight was a lot of fun. So the final boss fight was Saddler. And yes, I did come equipped with the rocket launcher because I said, hey, listen, you don't get the rocket launcher and do nothing with it, right? So I knew I wanted to save this weapon for end game. I didn't know when I was going to use it. So during this fight, I shot the rocket launcher, but it just sort of went through him completely. I should go back and watch the clip, actually. Maybe I did something wrong, but it was really awkward. Anyways, despite that, I managed to get through that sequence almost completely before dying again, which is pretty cool to show that, like, hey, maybe I didn't need the rocket launcher. But this whole fight was really fun. I managed to get through the Saddler fight in just a few tries. Of course, on brand, though, because once he entered his second phase, I, of course, only had a hairline of health left, which meant I had to figure out the mechanics of his abilities without dying, which was virtually impossible. It was awful to the point where I just started laughing. So I did finally figure it out. As long as I was able to flash him before he did Tentacle Slam that you couldn't evade, I was able to then step to the side without taking any damage. I managed to do that. But the most hilarious part of it all was when I was thrown the rocket launcher. And this isn't the rocket launcher you buy. This is an end game sequence. All right. So I get the rocket launcher, or so I thought. Like I said, this game is incredibly well done. I had the worst tunnel vision I thought I picked up the rocket launcher. I go to aim, and rocket launcher one shot. So I'm thinking one shot. I shoot, I hesitate, and I said, what? There's ammo left. It's my freaking rifle. It's my freaking rifle. So after hesitating, I popped off 2 more shots, but then I died right away because of that hairline of health that I had left, right? So at the next attempt, or during the next attempt, when I get the rocket launcher again, this time I can see it differently. I think it's because of where I was positioned. I was maybe too close to the boss the first time around. So that time I was able to get the rocket launcher and actually take him down with that. That was freaking glorious. But yeah, that's just to show you how well done this game is. I was on the edge of my seat. The music was so intense. I wanted to win so much so that I had tunnel vision and couldn't see even what was in front of me or even how he killed me with that tentacle slam. But I did go back and watch that clip the next day or later that night, and I could see it all clearly somehow. There was a chainsaw man that just killed me. It was during the end game, and I managed to clear all of these enemies without dying. But then this chainsaw man appears, and he just took me down, and he continued to take me down. So that was one of those moments that I was really struggling with some of the camera boss and inability to evade. And I realized that I needed to get away from this doorway, and I needed to pull him out into a slightly more open area. But before doing all that, I needed to make sure that all the surrounding enemies were taken down, or they would just gang up on me and it would be impossible. But yeah, that was one of the most challenging sections for sure, only because there's no save checkpoint. So I would manage to clear this whole area and then get to him. And that took quite a while to clear, but you have to do that and able to progress into the next section. Overall, I think this game was just incredibly well done. I'd absolutely give it a 10/10, and I would highly recommend it. It's worth every penny. I actually think this has probably been my favorite of all the remakes. It's a toss-up between this and Resident Evil 2 Remake. All of the boss fights, and not only the boss fights, but so many of the enemies are just so varied and different and surprising, and it really keeps you on the edge of your seat the entire time. But you don't have to be like me. You don't have to play on hardcore. I just really enjoy the challenges of playing a game in hardcore, especially for the first time. I like the learning curve that I go through. I like to figure things out and progressively get better. It feels very rewarding. So yeah, that's about it. Definitely check out the game. And if you do, let me know what you think in the comments below and tell me who was your favorite boss fight or what was your favorite section of the game. Thanks for watching the video. I've been switching up my content a little bit here on YouTube. So if you liked it, check out my other videos here on my channel. And don't forget to give this video a, thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thanks.